Well,
Hello.
hi.
How's it going?
Good, yourself?
Good. Good. Not sure who we're going to get on this thing today, but at least we can talk amongst ourselves. Mr. Moberly.
Hey, how's it going?
Not sure who. Oh, wait a minute. What's going on here? At least we can talk amongst ourselves. Mr. Moberly. Let's get this. There we go. There we go. I had my live stream from YouTube going at the same time. A little delay there. There we go. Good, Moberly. Welcome back from Texas.
Well, thank you, sir. It's nice and windy down there.
Well, makes for good tornadoes.
Yeah. Did you see the one that hit NOLA 2 nights ago?
NOLA. Yeah, I saw some of it.
That was pretty close to where it was staying last
kidding.
year. Yeah, I went through like 4 or 5 residential neighborhoods.
That's
Jeez.
crazy. Lots of new roofs.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, maybe.
Probably need
Well,
new houses.
We did a kind of a last minute post on this, so I don't know if we're ever going to get more people to show up or what. I'm going to keep an eye on the attendee list. But Mr. Lopez, what's new in your world?
Not a whole lot, just kind of a very fresh beginner looking to get into this world. And I saw you post, so I figured I'm sure I could learn something as I'm starting this journey. I've seen a lot of your videos, so those have been helpful within themselves. But yeah, I'm at the very, very, very fresh stage of getting going.
What's your background?
So I work in the fire alarm industry.
Okay.
And been doing that for quite some time now, about maybe over 10 years.
Okay. And then what kind of restoration are you gonna be doing?
So water, fire, I figured those will be 2 perfects where a lot of my point of contacts now that I have created through the years at high rises and apartment complexes, I could kind of leverage those. But yeah, I mean, I'm fresh. I mean, I just kind of started digging into this maybe 2-3 weeks ago. So
No kidding. All right.
yeah, but I've already kind of hit the ground running in the sense of like hitting some of the people I know and saying, hey, how do I get connected with you? How does your point of contacts work in the situations and emergencies and all that nature?
Are you gonna self-perform or sub stuff out?
Self-perform. So me and I have a partner that's joining me on the venture.
Okay. Well, fire and water are 2 very different animals. So you guys are gonna you got a bunch of drying equipment already, or you're looking to buy some? What's your status?
I started to get some actually off of one of the Facebook groups where it's one of those test the equipment, review it, which is just a humidifier, and it worked out because my grandmother's basement is extremely humid. So I was able to get the equipment tested and get my feet wet in that sense. But yeah, moving forward, we'll need to start buying some fans and tarps, everything that's kind of needed.
And then short term, you've got a good connection with a local rental yard to get you by if something comes in the door today.
So I have not gone that far, but yes, there is one locally. And when I say I haven't gone that far, I haven't gone that far to see exactly what rental equipment they have. But there's one right down the street from me that from a quick search, they have fans and DQs that I could rent. It's like, I think their name is actually rental something. It's a big uniform. I just can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, good.
But yeah, I figured that'll be a good go-to in the meantime while we're kind of building everything up.
Okay, well, I want to talk about something, and mainly just to put it out there and get it on my YouTube channel, so it'll hopefully further a conversation. So if there's no, there's just nobody here today, so I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about. I'll do screen share here. Where's my meeting controls? So the deeper we get into this industry, and Mr. Mike, if some of this goes over your head, well, so be it. We that have been doing this sort of thing for quite some time have seen quite a few patterns emerge from carriers, for everything from what they don't want to pay for, or how they demand things be documented, and coverages that they may or may not arbitrarily apply or not apply. So among those things that we deal with on a daily basis, the top few are overhead and profit and pricing. A lot of carriers don't allow, air quotes, allow contractors to change the off-the-shelf Xactimate pricing. And despite the fact that Xactware has said their pricing is not standard, their pricing is just a starting point, the RIA has come out with a white paper in this regard. And the similar fashion, overhead and profit is, carriers say we don't cover, that's overhead is part of your cost of doing business or whatever else it is. They try to throw all kinds of direct job costs into an overhead catch-all bucket. So what I've done is I've set up 3 websites, and they're essentially just pointing to 3 different Google surveys. And I'm collecting data as part of a larger concerted effort to help the industry fight back. You and I, and we can all see these things happening on a daily basis, but it doesn't really matter unless we can prove it at scale in a court of law. So these 3 websites, Safeco, State Farm, and American Family, I am collecting loss claim specific data regarding whether overhead and profit was allowed or charged, whether a custom price list was used, and there's a couple other things. So I'd like to use this platform and the Rebels. If you have, we're trying to set a pattern. We're trying to show a pattern of behavior from these carriers, and the only way we can do that is collect data. So one of the questions is, did you get paid in full for the mitigation? If this lawsuit's mitigation, what did Safeco pay, and what was your invoice? And the database will do the calculation on, okay, across these 1,000 claims that we have reported from across the country from Safeco, we can show that Safeco pays, at least initially without being sued, 56 cents on the dollar. They underpay, they systematically underpay these things by 50% or 60% or whatever it is. And excuse me, these other things, but we can only do this. We can only, we can't do anything about the data. So I've had a few people reach out to me, and they've sent me their data sets, which is good. But more than importantly, I'd like to see hundreds, if not thousands, of contractors submit at least one claim to each one of these websites, so we can have a representative sample of what these companies are doing nationwide, what these companies are doing on the aggregate, and systematically. These are I want to show that these are not one-off. These are not adjusters going rogue, going off the reservation and doing these weird things. These are endemic to the claims departments of these companies. Joe, do you have any input on that? I think you know where I'm headed with this thing.
As far as the policy maneuvering,
Tracking, yeah.
I think that is a lot of what I'm seeing. I mean, especially in roofing or storm claims. I mean, I'll use last week as an example. You know, a wind and a hail event is a wind and a hail event, but on the claim, the insurance company is just putting hail. And that's because the client doesn't know what to say, but these little technicalities matter because when it just says hail, now they just have to look and see if there's any spatter. Well, if it's less than 3/4 of an inch, it's not going to leave much, right? And
oh, are you there? I lose you. Now everyone's muted again. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so after that, they'll look for just spatter. They might get on 1 or 2 roofs, and then they won't even look for wind. You know, another example is, you know, match lawn siding and things of that sort, or carpet. For some reason, they think that they only have to pay for part of a floor.
Yeah, matching reasonably uniform appearance.
Right.
And the surveys I put together don't have anything regarding that. And I think maybe we could add to these things as they go.
Oh, you get a lot of data from it, I'm sure. Do you pull your stuff from the states too, nationally, on like claim settlements and success rates and open and close cases?
Who tracks those?
Texas has that.
Texas tracks them? Do other states track them?
Probably not.
Yeah, Texas that sounds unique.
Is a mythical unicorn as far as complexity to get claims paid, but they also have consumer protection like that.
Yeah, that'd be, I mean, I think all claims nationwide should be tracked.
Sure.
That's ultimately the way that I think we're just going to keep these guys honest is show them what we're watching and show the data to the general public that, you know, American Family hasn't paid a claim on time and in full in 5 years or something like that. You know, I would guess it's something like that. Everything over $10,000 with each one of these companies is going to take 95 days or 120 days to settle.
Right.
That data is key, especially when you start going into court and trying to show patterns.
Yeah, I believe they've got a lot of that though. I mean, that's TDI. I really don't know what other data is available. I just know I had to get into it a little last year, and they even have it so that when a storm happens within certain time frames, you can see the amount of TDI insurance complaints come in.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And it's usually like within 3 to 6 months after a storm, because that's when people lose their wits about them, right?
Yep.
So it just, you can see the big spike ups per company and everything.
Texas Department of Insurance. I'm gonna check it out. Mr. Fuller, are you in the house? There you are.
I am.
It's dark.
I can open my window. It's just kind of like rainy and it's like rainy and nasty here today, and it's just like gloomy and it's just a crappy day.
Ugh. Well, we're gonna be sunshiny and 70, so I'll send some your way.
Yeah, we need everything we can get.
So I put this post up or put this link up last minute, but it's recurring now. So as long as we keep it in the announcements in the top of the group, I think we can get some more attendees in here. So Tim, what do you think about reporting and collecting data on claims payments and things like that from different carriers? Do you track that internally?
Yeah, we do and we don't. Like certain carriers I just know aren't going to be a problem, and I don't track it so much, but the problematic ones, yeah, I keep track of those real close. How many, yeah, let me back up. I historically, yes, I did, but we've kind of really moved to a different model over the last 6 to 8 months, maybe a year.
Where you just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I just don't give a rap.
Essentially.
And it kind of goes a lot like Trey Raines was talking about in the group earlier in the week, where we run it like a hospital would run it, or anybody else would run it, right? Like, here's what it took to do the job. Your insurance covered this much. This is the outstanding bill.
Here's what you owe us. Yeah.
Here's what you owe us. Like, so to a certain extent, I don't even know what they get paid now because I don't deal with it. Like, in the few occasions that I've been blessed enough to deal with Wardlaw and some of those other companies, like, I've made them regret ever hearing my name.
Right.
So, and I think I even posted in their group my last dealing when I had to get involved with the insurance company, which I haven't really had to do in probably a year.
Nice.
For a water mitigation job. My invoice was $8,100, and we're on about day 23 after completion, or 24, something like that. Wardlaw called and wanted my paperwork at like 3 p.m. one day. By 8 o'clock the next morning, Wardlaw had it with me. And the client was calling me to tell me that they electronically funded him not only my entire bill, but I added
your penalties.
I added a penalty of $500 for even using my information without my permission. Plus, I billed them 2 hours just having made the phone call and dealt with Wardlaw for the hour and a half.
For your time.
So they cut me a check for $8,700. So,
and
like,
that's how it should be.
Right. Like, if you want to waste my time, it's going to cost you. Like, I have a million things to do every day. My time isn't free. I'm sorry. It's just not. Like,
yep.
I just have way too much to do, and I'm just not going to fart around with Wardlaw. So
we've got a new guy in the house here, Mr. Lopez. So note to self, Mr. Lopez, the number one risk that we take as restorers is not getting paid. That's the number one risk we have. And the number one reason restorers go out of business, and I've worked for 3 different restorers that went bankrupt over the years. Number one reason, they do jobs without getting paid, and their accounts receivable buries them. That's it. Those are our 2 biggest problems in the restoration industry, because carriers are driven by profit only. They're not driven by doing the right thing. They're not driven by taking care of their clients. They don't even think about their clients as clients, because they're not. They're just premium payers that they could, as soon as they file a claim, they're like, the boxing gloves go on and it's over. The insurance companies don't care about anything but profit. So we have to advocate for ourselves. And that's a big reason why this group exists, because for the longest time, the carriers were successful at isolating us from each other and siloing us and making us feel like we were the only ones. We were the odd people out. We were the strange people trying to change our pricing. We were the strange people trying to charge service fees.
You know what would be interesting, Andy? We should create a poll in the group, or we should create even just a post and ask everybody to check the box if the carrier has said, the other restoration companies don't charge this.
My other guys don't charge me for this.
Other guys don't charge this.
I have a guy who would do it for that price.
Right. How many guys, actually, it might be easier to put the post up. Who hasn't heard this yet?
Who hasn't?
Who hasn't heard this yet?
So true.
But we all bought that crap for how many years? Like,
I don't know that we bought it, but we actively ignored it.
Well, yeah, that could
we,
be.
we swept it under the rug because it didn't hurt bad enough. It was this death by inches.
Well, it goes back to, you let them have that, and then the next round, they take your hand, but they take your arm too.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a function of profit. They have to continue as publicly traded companies. They're under extreme pressure to constantly show increased profits, constantly, beyond physics, beyond what should be, at a certain point, you shouldn't, if you're running a successful company, in my opinion, your profits, you should still be making profit. But to say last year I made 100 million and this year I need to make 120 million, if your market size doesn't change, where are you going to get the extra money? You're going to steal it from somebody, or you're going to pay less on claims. That's where it breaks down to. So this unrealistic expectation of ever increasing profits is what we're dealing with on the consumer side. Is they're just completely clamping down on everything, and it's gone too far, way too far.
What would you say is the best way to protect oneself, like myself starting, right? What's something that I should begin thinking about, or maybe eventually put in process once I get going to avoid not being, I guess avoid not being paid is I guess it's not really a thing, right? But how could I avoid that happening to me in that sense? And I've seen a lot of the videos where, making sure the onboarding is correct, making sure the terminology and the contracts are set, if needing to put a lien, then put a lien on it, or threaten to do so. But in your experience, what's kind of a way to say, all right, this is how you can avoid falling into this trap of not getting paid?
Yeah, it's all in the setup. It's all in the work you do before you get the claim, before you get the file, before you get the job. So yeah, ironclad contracts. Know at a deep level what you know your numbers. Yeah, know your profitability, know your job costs, know your business costs, know your overhead costs. If you know these things and you price them in to your services accordingly, a surefire way is to just get paid directly, and let your customer deal with getting reimbursed from the insurance company. And from what it sounds like, you're going after big property owners, commercial. They are more likely to start writing checks if your documentation is tight, if you do a good job and your contracts are good, and you're completely transparent in what you're doing. Your customer understands you provided the service. The commercial guys, a lot of them are just going to write a check, and then they're going to go to the carrier and say, hey, this is my cost of this claim. You're going to pay it. And then you don't have to deal with it. And that's where we get in trouble, is we take on responsibilities that don't belong to us. We take on responsibilities from the insured, from the business owner or the homeowner, that we have no leverage in that situation, unless we have an AOB, which is a whole different conversation altogether. I'm a big fan of assignment of benefits clauses. And we sign one every time we go to the doctor's office. We sign an AOB. So, excuse me, I think AOBs have their place, but I also think they're dangerous in that they're putting us in a position of negotiating the claim when we should just be in the business of putting stuff back together.
I've got a couple tips.
Yeah.
Documentation. Okay. We run into this all the time, even with seasoned companies. Take your photos, learn about photo techniques. If you want to ask us for guides on that, we can give them to you. Anyone can in this panel and in the group. Start your estimating process while the job is going on. The sooner you can beat that adjuster with the estimate and they don't have a file, because let's be honest, boys, 9 times out of 10, do the adjusters beat us to the estimate? No, they do that on purpose. But have your estimate ready so your story is what's being debated, not theirs. And really, those are a couple key tips. And then another thing, don't do work that you haven't agreed on. Either written is always best, verbal holds little clout, but you have to choose when verbal is good. If you can get a verbal approval from an adjuster and you know he can't backtrack from allowing you to take carpet out, go on it, make sure you got a witness. But put everything in writing, like Andy said, have contracts and make everything crystal clear.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just be intentional. Be intentional about what you're doing. A lot of folks, unfortunately, just get into this business and they're flying by the seat of their pants, and they're just doing what they think is the right thing to do, or what they've been told by somebody who doesn't necessarily have the best experience. And the last thing you want to be doing is taking advice from an adjuster. You're going to be like, hey, this is my news. I'm new. This is my first job, or it's my only my fifth job. I'm just trying to get into it. And you're going to be tempted to ask the adjuster, hey, what should I do here? Or how should I bill this? You don't want to ask the adjuster any of that. You want to know how you're going to bill it. You want to know how you're going to get the job done. Before you don't put yourself in a position of taking advice or getting guidance from a carrier or an adjuster. Joseph Spears is in the house.
Is he on today? I don't see him. I only see 4 people, Andy. I see you and me and Mike and Joe. Where is everybody?
It'll take a second. I don't know where everybody is. I don't know. Ben Coley signed up.
Are you streaming on, there's Joe Spears. Are you streaming on Facebook right now?
No, I'm streaming on LinkedIn.
You're on LinkedIn?
I'm sorry, YouTube. Yeah. YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Streaming to YouTube.
Can you also stream it on Facebook at the same time? And then we can put the link in the post under in the group. I think you can do both at once.
No, I can't. Doesn't look like I can.
I was trying to find my Rebel Alliance hat since I'm in the Rebel group right now and I can't find it. So give me a second.
It's 3 right now. I thought that was Thursday. That's so scary for a sec.
I have another question. Is every estimate and every public adjuster insurance company, do they all use Xactimate? I've been searching the Rebels group pages, and some guys seems like they've made their own custom pricing or an Excel sheet with all that. Is there any kind of downfall to maybe going and saying, hey, I don't use Xactimate, here is my quote? Are there downfalls to that? Do companies kind of look the other way if you're not using Xactimate for estimates?
You're not required to use Xactimate or Symbility or any of that. You can write it on a napkin because you don't answer to the carrier.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer is you use whatever fits your business model.
Yeah.
If that happens to line up with the carrier, then it does. And I think out of habit, most of us do use Xactimate, and I still use Xactimate because it's just kind of the easiest thing. And I find that I miss a whole lot less billing when I use Xactimate because there's virtually a line item for everything. But
Xactimate is how we learned to estimate. And the bottom line is using Xactimate eliminates a lot of the friction.
Yeah.
Because you are ostensibly creating an apples to apples comparison to somebody else's opinion who also wrote in Xactimate.
But you also should be using your own custom price list too. Don't feed into the BS that you have to be using the published prices. Those are averages. That's not the Bible. You should be modifying the Xactimate price list to fit your exact company.
But first you need to figure out how you're going to get that stuff written. My company, Claims Delegates, writes Xactimate estimates. So you don't even have to go buy the software or learn how to use it. You can just get a hold of us.
Right.
And we can do it for you. And after a while, you might decide you want to do it in-house, which is completely fine with me. But new guys coming in, don't put one more roadblock in the way of this learning curve, which is restoration. Eliminate as many of those speed bumps as you can, and offshore, near shore, sub out, whatever you can at the beginning until you get your feet underneath you. And then decide what functions you want to bring back in-house. There's a lot of companies out there like Belfour in certain markets. They don't perform any work. They don't do anything. They sub it all out to local contractors. All they do is get a lead. So if I were you, I would find some great local contacts that'll do extraction for you, that'll set up drying for you. You're going to need asbestos abatement. You're going to need a hygienist. You're going to need a lot of subs to help you along the way.
Or get into a network like mine where we've built that out in all the counties.
Yes. Not yet. It's close.
Can I go back to Xactimate?
You may.
Our distinguished panelists have given very good insight to you, Mr. Mike, and you'll probably be the focus of our conversation today, because it's like if we could just tell all the newbies, all of the 10 to 20 years or however long everyone's got experience, it's like what not to do. That's what we're trying to do today. But I just want to give him a little brief history lesson on it. I promise not to go too far into it, Andy. It's been around, I think, like almost 30 years.
Close.
And I think they started off with just calculation, like database type, calculations for doing takeoffs and doing building costs. And over the years, they try to get market data. We know that that's skewed, but that's how they base their prices. But it's evolved into this thing that contractors, consultants, adjusters, insurance carriers, everyone uses it. And the scary part is we love it. And there is a line item for everything. And then that's why we can zero in on the insurance estimates, because they're always missing like half the line items. And we're like, why didn't you put this in? But you don't have to use it, like Andy was saying, and like Timothy was saying. You could use, time and material estimating. Some people are trying to use SimDility, which definitely don't get in that if you're new. But you just kind of have to have a system set up to at least turn in something, and Xactimate seems to be like the law when it comes to that. That's all I wanted to say.
One of the biggest things I'll say is about Xactimate is this year is to, the industry as a whole, though, what we got to get away from is so much. One of the reasons why like the pricing is so skewed is, one, unless you're a TPA vendor or you're an adjuster, usually people aren't marking their files complete, which is what helps report the pricing changes to Xactimate for their averages. But also too many people are just default, I don't know the price, I'm just going to use a bid item. And those bid items don't factor into any pricing. So like, for example, this month in Indianapolis, where I live, a 40-gallon 6-year water heater, remove and replace, is priced out at $1,200. I can tell you right now, there ain't a single plumbing company that'll do it for less than $2,000 in Indianapolis. And the problem is that, like, if I was writing it, I'm going to change that line item to read the price of whatever my vendor is wanting me to use it as, if I have to get if I was pulling a bid, so to speak. But when you just use a normal bid item, it doesn't change that price. So it won't report back to Xactimate and help our averages go up. We got to start getting people to like using the line item and then learning how to change those even if they are using a bid, because they're, for whatever reason, using the line item they're bidding out instead of just the generic one. So that way those prices get reflected back in our updated price list.
That's not a straightforward solution, I don't think. So Xactimate keeps up, a little bit behind, maybe 2 or 3 months behind on materials, but they keep up with materials. So when you talk about replacing a water heater, you're talking about a component that has materials and labor in it. So when you go in there and change that line item, you want to make sure you're changing the labor on it.
And that's what I meant. I mean,
as well as the materials.
I go through components and I change the pricing to, I have my plumbers usually, here's how much it is for materials, here's how much it is for the labor side of things. And I go in, I don't just do it like a default price change on it, but the bid items don't report back to anybody because they don't know where to apply them to usually. So it's always better, I think, to try to use, the line item and then go in and forcefully change it through the component section, because that way they'll at least report back the water heater prices are wrong. Because there is not like I said, there's not a single person in Indianapolis that'll do a water heater. I think the cheapest I found was $1,900, and Xactimate gives you $1,275.
Yeah. And then what else was added on top? Like where was the margin? How'd you build the margin in?
I haven't actually done that yet. This is my first water heater for this month here. I haven't even started figuring out the margins on it yet. But
okay.
I mean, I got to still do all that there. But I was on a job site walkthrough yesterday, and the plumber's like, yeah, it's going to be $2,200, and I was like, I need that in writing because Xactimate's only going to give me $1,200 right now until we use a proper. And granted, for my daytime job, it's TPA, so I gotta finagle it a little bit better. But we're getting away from those hopefully here real soon. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the hardest things is the fact that we don't have enough people on our side of the fence reporting back pricing. People just do bid items a whole lot. They don't use it the right way to report the pricing. And that's why we don't ever see a whole lot of changes in materials and stuff over what we should, because all the insurance companies it's 10-to-1 ratio of how many people are reporting back on the adjuster side.
Well, and I'm all for pricing feedback. But what's more important to me is accommodating for margins, accommodating for overhead, and building in profit. So if somebody has a 20% overhead, and I actually talked to a client last week who had a 30% business overhead, they are drowning, and they know it. So they're working actively I mean, they really treat their people right, and their business overhead's a lot. But if they're building in 30% overhead, and they're building in, they need to have a 10% profit at the end of the year, they're going to be marking up their price list north of 50%.
I'll be back, guys. I got a phone call coming in.
All right, see you, man. And if they're marking up their price list 50% and doing pricing feedback based on that, what you're feeding back to Xactware is your specific business markups, which I don't think necessarily needs to happen. I don't think that's the right way to use the pricing feedback, and I don't think it's what it was intended to do. Pricing feedback needs to cover costs, but we have a lot of people out there using pricing feedback to try to build in markup to the system, and I don't think that's right. Well, I think we should be completely transparent about it and accept. Yes, if I can't get a water heater for less than $2,000 and Xactware has a material component at $1,200, I need to change that. That's on me, but that's still not going to get me the markup that I need to make a profit and cover my overhead. I'm still going to need to mark that whole thing up by 50%. And for me to do that markup and then give that feedback back to Xactimate at 50% markup, I don't think it's the right way to do it. One of you guys disagree with that?
I don't get into those weeds.
I know. Well, you
price
charge
is
what you
my
charge.
price, and you can take it or leave it. And
right.
Like, I don't have any problem. I don't have any problem just putting a miscellaneous item in there. $2,000 water heater. Like, whether I'm building their system by updated prices is irrelevant to me because I'm running my own price list. So. Right. I don't even care about them updating the prices because I'm not even using their prices. So whatever their prices update is irrelevant to me. So
yeah, and even what's his name? That does the pricing class. What's it? I forget his name.
Harmon?
No, JRCC.
Oh, Ben.
Ben. So what he's doing, what he advocates and what he teaches is changing the labor burden to build in margin. and then report that back through the pricing feedback function in Xactware. But that pricing feedback is meant to be feedback for costs, not markup. And so in what he's done in his market is he's increased the labor across the board on all the line items. So he has margin built in. I don't think that's the right way to do it. I don't think that's
because
it's
it's
not
really
reporting
designed
costs.
because it's really designed for your overhead and profit to come at the end.
Exactly. So anyway,
I got a question
I've
for
gone
you.
around and around and around on this.
I got a question for you, Andy.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the material, so when you look at the material pricing on the component section, do you, if it was one of your estimates, is that material, if I look at it and it says, carpet allowance, 266 or water heater, $894, is that what price you view it as that spend? You take a percentage of that material, it's 10% or 20% less.
Oh, you're cutting out pretty bad.
Sorry, hang on. Oh, it's because of my video games are trying to run. Sorry. My Steam opened up and started trying to download stuff. So let's just, for either of the numbers here, let's just say that, the material price if you go to the component section and the material price for the water heater is $1,000. Do you personally view that as I have $1,000 to go buy this homeowner a water heater, or do you take overhead or, a little bit of overhead off the material price as well? Does that make sense? I have some people that tell me that if I have $1,000 for a water heater, that means I can only spend $800 on a water heater because it's not factoring in the extra cost of ordering and all that stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't be, using those numbers as straight allowances is dangerous. You're not going to make any money.
Use a different item as an example, because with a water heater, we're already thinking that we're calling a plumber. So the comparison isn't good. Let's say carpet. Let's
say we have $3.40 a square foot for carpet.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the homeowner can go out and buy $3.40 up to $3.40 a square foot of carpet, and we're not going to have any out-of-pocket cost? Or do you drop that number down to like $280, $290 and say that's your carpet allowance?
I use that number, carpet specifically. I use that as a retail price, and then I send the client to a wholesale shop that will quote them retail pricing, but I know I'm getting my margin from them based on my volume. So that's based on me as a contractor sourcing and finding that material and not paying full retail. But that is the retail allowance.
And see, I've had some people try to tell me, yeah, you have your built-in overhead and profit and everything, but you're supposed to still take some off because you got to go pick it up and everything. And I was like, that's supposed to be the retail allowance, but all of us get discounts from Lowe's for LAR accounts and stuff. So that's where you make your money back up on those retail allowances.
That's what it means to be a contractor, right? Contractors, that's just part of the function. You get, the only way you make profit is to do the job for less than what you're charging, and that's the point. So once again, it's a great guideline for a retail price, but it's definitely not set in stone. But I'm also not afraid to look at that and go, man, I got to add like $1.50 a yard or $1.50 a foot to get to the right price because the valuation's not there.
Oh, yeah. I got something to tell you that make you laugh here. So I wrote an estimate about a week ago for somebody, and they got it kicked back from one of our favorite little review firms. I won't mention who or whatever. The reviewer.
Why not?
You're
among friends. Spit it out.
I guess so. They got it kicked back from Ward Law.
There you go.
This was a category 3 water damage. It was some hurricane worked and everything. And, we did demo on it. We didn't even demo out the whole room. It was like half the ceiling, the exterior wall, the floor. Ward Law had the nerve to kick it back to him and say that we should have used the general demo per room square footage line item and took off like tried to take off $20,000 of this estimate because he didn't want to. He didn't think it was appropriate to use an itemized estimate on the water damage. And I was like, I was like, I don't even, I literally, I was like, I don't even know how to respond to this. Like, that is just some outlandish bullshit right there.
Well, they weren't there when the water was flowing. They weren't there. They weren't there when the job was getting done. And since they didn't do the work, they weren't there when the work was being done. They don't get to choose how you invoice for that work. You invoice according to your contract. And if your contract says we're going to line item this and we're going to use Xactimate, then that's what you get. Ward law or no one else can tell you how to estimate or invoice. This is an invoice on an estimate. That they would be hard pressed to show us why what they did in that situation was improper.
Well, what's really crazy is this here. Like, I've always known there's the general, knock a house down line item, full demo, take a bulldozer to it type line items in there. 20 years of writing estimates. I've never, except for like if it's the house burnt down to the ground, I got to raise it down to the foundation real quickly. I know and everything. That's the only time I've ever had to use that line item. I've had in the last month 3 different files: a house fire, a water damage, and then another house fire. And it seems like the interest is really starting to try to push, especially on the house fires, just to use these general demo line items instead of items. I had the first adjuster on one of my fires. He wrote it itemized just like I did. And then he got taken off the file and it got pushed to a new adjuster. And this adjuster's like, oh, well, we have to do it by general itemized, general room demo. And he tried to knock the bill down like $30,000-$40,000 as well. And I was like, every single person I know writes itemized. That's the whole point of Xactimate. And you want to make it a generalized room per square foot. And it's usually, it's over half as much money without even counting like labor changes. If you're doing CLNR or HMR, it's still over half the price of it's less than half the price of what it is if you itemize it out. And I don't know anybody that uses those line items hardly, except for lately the adjusters. It just seems like they're popping up a lot more as a way for them to try to argue getting to pay less money on the demos.
Yeah, but as long as they accept Xactimate as the language that they're willing to speak and negotiate in, they got no say. We're using a tool. We're using a program. And they can't tell us what to charge or how to charge it. Yeah. And ward laws, I'm seeing more and more. I mean, like Tim just had a huge win with the ward law last week. Took him less than 12 hours. The answer to ward law has to be no. No. And then don't fucking pick up the phone when they call.
My answer to ward law is, if you want to deal with me, you get all of me, and you will not like me when.
Well, ward law has it. They have it set up where it makes you feel like, or it makes a lot of people feel like they have to negotiate. Because this will send over our comparative estimate.
I want to show you guys something.
And
hold on a second.
They do. They are very carefully way they talk to people, where they make you feel like if you don't talk to us, we're just going to tell the adjuster this is what we think they should have to pay, and that's what the adjuster is going to pay. But like in the one situation with the water flood damage, we got a hold of the adjuster direct and said, hey, ward law is being ridiculous here. This is what they're trying to do. And the guy was like, yeah, that's really stupid. And he actually sided with us, which was awesome. And, we ended up taking like maybe 10% off the bill or something like that there. I think it was because we didn't have some photos that they were asking for, but, we played the game. But yeah, even they were like, yeah, that's wrong. And
Andy, can you, sorry not to interrupt.
I think it's enabled.
Can you share my screen while he's finishing talking?
Here we go. There we go.
I want you guys to see. All right. Can you guys see? Are we on the right page? Ward law here. So Wardlaw's website, right? And you see the submit and assignment. Second look, invoice review. type of claim, return the report to blah, 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 the adjuster's name. Assignment limited to provide comparative estimate, obtain document, contact vendor to negotiate.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's on their website, you guys.
There's so many things wrong with that. I don't even know where to start.
And in comparison is an audit only, do not negotiate. So when Wardlaw calls you and says, this is not warranted and that's not warranted and this isn't warranted, it's because the adjuster has came here and said, negotiate with this person.
Wait,
they're telling you that because
contact
their
vendor to
instructions
negotiate.
are to negotiate.
Negotiate what though? Does it have a, keep going. Does it have, we want a 40% reduction?
Check.
No.
What's the checklist say there? Hang on. Checklist.
Invoice,
Invoice, service provided, drawing records, inspection note, photo and diagram, adjuster's repair estimate. So they're asking for all the documentation from the company before they even.
But my point is, when
They're
the
not
assignment gets submitted to them, they are specifically told up front, contact the vendor to negotiate. So it doesn't matter if it's a perfect invoice and everything is perfect, their instructions are still to negotiate it.
Are they allowed to do that? I mean, I thought you can't negotiate if you're not an adjuster.
They're
I mean,
allowed to do whatever they damn well please until they get drug into court.
Well, and here's the thing,
They
because
just haven't been drug into court yet.
because they're a direct representative of the carrier, there are legal loopholes that the carrier's adjusters do not need to be licensed adjusters if they work directly for the carrier.
Yeah, but the third parties don't
Yeah,
fall
so
underneath that.
I'm sure that they're using that as a loophole, though, that they are the official representative of the carrier and therefore.
How many tabs do you have open?
I wondered the same.
Can you believe that I use that stuff almost all day long?
What?
DocuSign and emails and Menards and QuickBooks and like I'm into all and my codes, you know, I'm always looking up a code for this and or a code for that. Like,
okay. Wow.
I'm legit into all my tabs. But anyway, it's right on their website, guys, that when a file gets sent to Wardlaw, the file is sent with the sole purpose of cutting the bill. It's right here in black and white.
Yep.
Someone told me, I heard somewhere, I forget where it was, it might have been from Andy on a podcast, but isn't Wardlaw, don't they get paid the difference between what was submitted and how much they get taken off? Or is that something like that? That's how they get?
No, Code Blue does. Code Blue.
So if you look at this, it does say about somewhere, maybe it's under services. It does say in here somewhere that it's a flat rate.
No, there's so Code Blue doesn't allow you to write your own invoice. And
They don't let
reason
you write your own mitigation.
On mitigation, yeah.
So this is interesting.
So Code Blue negotiates with you, severely negotiates with you on rental for equipment, right? But they bill the insurance company full boat. So if you're getting $10 a day for an air mover, they're billing the carrier $25.
Yeah, they're billing full price. That's how they make money.
That's how they make their money.
Here's one of you guys asked this question earlier. Total
average reduction. Ooh.
And again, this is directly on their website. Like they brag about it.
Yeah.
They've cut $3 million off of invoices from contractors.
Yep. I'm surprised it's that low.
I'm actually surprised.
But you see right here, flat fee program. So larger files are generally time and expenses. But yeah, they must have a flat fee. It's probably
What's
like
that review of estimate for all emergency services.
I will say when it comes to the review companies, Wardlaw, I don't have that many issues with Wardlaw when they review a file like I wrote. The people that annoy the hell out of me is that fast response services or review company, which it's called like fast response, I think. those people are a pain in the ass to have review, to try to send you a review over. But I mean, there's so many of them out there, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy because it's not, like I said, I mean, I would never think someone would try to tell me I would get it on a fire loss, full gut fire loss. I could understand maybe saying do full room, get demo, but on a water damage or a room where a job where you didn't even do 100% demo on it, I was just like, this guy just has no, I mean, he's literally just, he couldn't find anything else to argue about. So
Well,
this
that's
is
what
what
it
he
was.
decided to do.
And that's why I continually say we shouldn't even talk to these folks. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of admin effort and a waste of mental effort. We shouldn't even talk to them. And if they got a problem with the invoice as it sits, they need to talk to the insured who was responsible for paying it. And that's, when Wardlaw gets involved, I think the client gets involved, period. That's it. And have Wardlaw talk to the client. They don't want to talk to the client because they know they're not adjusters. Mike, you got a question?
Just so I kind of understand where this falls in line. So the insurance company would be the ones to involve these private companies to argue your estimate and your quote on it. Okay.
Yep. They're third-party reviewers. Yep.
They send when you send over all your documentation to get paid to the adjuster, they forward it on to Wardlaw. They review it, and then they respond to you and tell you your estimate's garbage. Here's what we think we should have to pay you. And if you respond to them, you fall into their little mousetrap of game and all. And then they report back to the adjuster.
And it started out as a legitimate, honest review. It started out as the carrier's adjusters didn't have the time or the expertise to review this stuff. So they pawned it off to a third party. But not only did they pawn it off with the expectation of, hey, if we send files to you, you're going to save us 10% or you're going to save us 20%. And that's where it went wrong. There's nothing wrong with an adjuster calling in a subject matter expert to review a bill because they don't know what they're looking at. That's one thing. But what it turned into was just a flat out profit play. It's a flat out profit money play is we're going to farm out everything to get a measurable reduction in claim severity. And that's
quite frankly, it's more like 50% right now.
Well, exactly. Oh no, it's 50. It's their first go. You get one of these nasty grams from Wardlaw or whoever else, it's going to be 50 cents on the dollar. And it doesn't matter. They don't care how they get there. They're going for a number. They're not going for accuracy. So,
and from our side of it, it's pretty much just hold our ground, have our proof, and get the customer involved to kind of have them deal with that on that front end.
Yeah, and don't let an invoice out the door that you're not proud of, right? And there's bad actors on every side of the fence in this industry, and some of the guys on our side of the fence, they will inflate bills. They will put in for equipment that wasn't there or additional days or whatever else in order to get that. And that used to be the game early on was, well, if I know they're going to come back and knock me down 50%, I'm going to inflate it 50%. And then we're going to break even. And it was justified in that it was one bad justifying another bad. And it's just all dishonesty. So if you know you did the work and you know what you said you would do the work for, bill it accordingly, and then stand your ground. You're like, did you extract that carpet? Yeah, I extract that carpet. Well, I think you should extract that carpet for 50 cents a foot instead of $1 a foot. No.
Hey, I'll also add, Mike, since you're newer, that one of the things that we do, and I don't know if I have one handy here, but I could share it with you or somebody can share one with you, is that when we do an emergency mitigation, I don't have one handy. We have a form. It's two pages and it's just built into our contract. And it has all the most common emergency services thing. our rate per hour,
It's
our
a schedule of
per
fees. Yeah.
yeah, our per square foot price to extract, our cost per air move, our cost per all the different sizes of dehues. And we get our customer to sign that when they sign our contract.
Yep.
Because then at the end of the job, there's none of this, well, you know, Tim's charging $38 a day for an air mover and Xactimate says it's 29. No, it doesn't matter because the customer signed and agreed to pay 38.
Yep.
So make sure that you're taking it to that level of detail, that not only are you describing the scope of the work that you're going to do, even if it's in terms of we're going to, you know, dry the structure down to XYZ or blah, 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 but you're actually providing a schedule of fees with the majority, like try to systematize it so that you're getting the most common items, so that no matter what job you go on, your schedule of fees more than likely has those items in it.
I'm trying to
and
find
get those signed up front, because at that point, you know, you're eliminating a lot of the dispute. What happens is if you just leave it open-ended, we're going to dry this house, and then it ends up to be,
or worse,
$10,000.
we're going to do it for insurance proceeds. Ugh.
Yeah, don't ever say you'll agree to do it for the insurance proceeds, because you know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah,
But-
here's a schedule of fees for you.
Yep, there you go. And I wish I had, ours is like a spreadsheet.
And the client signs this so they can know right up front what their anticipated costs are going to be for this job. And you also go back to this when you get kickback. Oh, well, you know, $43 a day for an air mover, that's ridiculous.
Because
I
it's
don't
never
care.
a problem until the carrier doesn't pay.
Exactly. Exactly. And no, it's never a problem until the adjuster says something. But if this is in your contract, they signed it. And they signed it before you did the work. You know, I think $43 a day for an air mover is reasonable. I really is.
So
Especially
I did just,
Go ahead.
I apologize. I did finish watching Shane's entire like YouTube videos that he has on, and he really seems to stress on getting your contract signed, having a strong onboarding, it sounds like.
Yep.
And this kind of plays into part then that as long as we have signatures, release forms, and all our stuff is set up, then we should legally have no problem if it needs to get to that point of it. Now, I do have access. I do have a Matterport camera, and I can do Matterport scans.
Nice.
And for documentation, is it one of those where you would do a scan to begin with, do a scan in the middle of it? Let's say demo comes into play, you do a scan to show the areas that you're cutting drywall, you're removing, and all that nature to have that. Is that beneficial, or just still shot photo shots are a little bit more beneficial to package all this together?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's people using that system in a whole lot of different ways. And you know, I do know of companies that do a pre-demo, a post-demo with the equipment in there, and then they'll do a final, you know, when the job's done or put that together, they'll do another scan. But it's a function of how much spare time do you have, which system you're using. I mean, are you using the Pro 2 camera? Are you using a 360 camera?
A 360, yeah. But I mean, I feel this all ties in together with this pricing and a lot of how to protect ourselves on the back end.
I mean,
I'm a
I
huge
have
fan
the
of
$3,000 camera myself. Sorry, Andy, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I have the $3,000 camera myself, and I mean, honestly, usually, you know, on the mitigation side and stuff, I don't really use it a whole lot personally to document the status of the job at the beginning, because it's always a mess as it is, or, you know, there's standing water. I don't want to bring the camera out in there. But when I do break it out for jobs, it's usually I usually do it, you know, in between the mitigation and the reconstruction. But personally, I use it more for my own benefit. It's not for the adjuster's benefit to, you know, when I go back to the office, I can better document and write my estimate and all. But it does, I mean, it has a lot, I feel it has a lot more benefit to be used when you're doing the reconstruction side of things to justify square footages and all that. I mean, it has a place for mitigation, but I think at the same time, considering how many how pricey it is, and you have to buy the membership and you get so many scans doing it, at the beginning with equipment on site and all. I mean, I would do it only for a job like that there. If you're talking like a large scale commercial file or something, like it's going to be
Well,
6 figures.
I mean, if you're using a big camera, yeah, but if you're using a 360 camera and you can partner with somebody like Claims Delegates, I didn't mean to turn this whole thing into a commercial for Claims Delegates, but we've got a grandfather plan with Matterport, and we give our clients access to that plan, so they're not limited with how many spaces they can use. They can use our account and use their 360 camera, and we do mitigations all the time from Matterports, and it saves a ton of time because you don't have to measure anything. You don't have to take any separate pictures. You still got to document wetness and things like that, but you do a scan with a Matterport and you ship it off, and we're gonna be writing that estimate, and it's gonna be, or the invoice is gonna be in your inbox in a couple of days. And it's super easy. So yeah, the big camera has a time and a place because it's cumbersome, it's slower. But on 1 or 2, 3 rooms, I would not be afraid to do a Matterport on them. But doing more than one Matterport, it's a judgment call. It's a judgment call.
Okay. Because I feel I asked that because I feel it tied in perfectly with the schedule. Because then it could be like, well, look, I did set these fans up and this EQ up, and fight that case on that end as well.
Oh, for sure. Plus, if down the road you get into an argument with anybody, Wardlaw or anybody else, you can always go directly to that loss as it sat on day one or whenever you took the scan, and start talking about nuts and bolts instead of this. It used to be, it was all an imaginary game because we had to pretend that we were there. But now we can actually virtually be there, and the fidelity of the data on the Matterport system is just phenomenal.
The other thing regarding billing, so here's I don't know how well it shows up on the camera, but this is what our price sheet looks like. So it's sorted out here by like floors, vinyl floor, wood floor, equipment, insulation, doors, cabinets, additional items. So it's just a little spreadsheet, really tiny spreadsheet, and we just get a signature down here.
Are you using that for your tick sheet too?
Yeah, yes and no. We have it's set up that you can do that, but
looks like it is, yeah.
We're all digital. This is a paper copy, but we're all digital, so we do it right in our CRM. But
okay.
One of the other things that we do that was a game changer for us is our old procedure used to be that we, let's say today we had a job and the job was finished today. The guys would go and they would pick up equipment, get a COS, bring everything back. We'd type up the invoice, get it all sent, get it sent off, send it to the client, blah, blah, blah. And then it'd sit for a couple of weeks, right? That's not how we do it now. Now what we do is when the guys pull equipment, they get a certificate of completion when they pull equipment saying that the job is finished. And then they schedule an appointment for me or somebody else to go back the following day or the day after to close out the job. Then we go back with the final invoice all complete. And we go over it with the homeowner and we say, this is when we dropped off the equipment. This is the number of DUs. This is an air scrubber. That was that big silver thing, blah, blah, blah. We go through it with them. After we get done with it, we say, now to finish closing out this job, we need a certificate of satisfaction. And part of our certificate of satisfaction says that they have received the invoicing, and to the best of their knowledge and belief, it's true, complete, and accurate. And they sign it. So not only do they have the invoice at that very minute, they've already signed that the total is true and accurate, and they agree with it.
Yeah.
So when it doesn't go well and it has to go back to the customer, how long do you think I battled that in court? About 45 minutes.
Yeah.
There's no long drawn out anything because I already have a signed statement saying they agree with my total. This is just a case closed.
Yep.
So
Mike, are you on video or your phone?
I am on my phone.
Can you see us though? No?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can see you.
All right. So Matterport Pro 2 camera, 360 camera. I mean, it's the data and the pictures coming out of the Pro 2 are phenomenal. But for usefulness, this little sucker, man, I travel with this more than I travel with this these days.
Yeah, I have the 360, and I was kind of doing it for real estate for a bit, and you could just fly through them. It's a pretty nice camera setup, and that's why I'm glad that I could actually use it for this as well. It worked out perfectly, actually. Now, with those forms, with the pricing schedules and the pricing on the fans and the DQs, does that have O&P built into it already, or is that okay?
Yes, that's the point of a schedule of fees. Now, I will use a schedule of fees like the one I showed, and it will say, this schedule of fee, this is a time and material contract. All the above charges will be marked up 10% overhead and 10% profit. So you build in markup to it, but you also mark it up.
Okay.
And that's just to avoid the reality is contractors, most real contractors, there's a keystone markup, right? If their costs are $100,000, they're charging $200,000. That's just accepted. That is the keystone markup. But it's only us in this weird little niche industry that feel ashamed for marking things up 20%. When deep down we know we need more than 20%. So a fee schedule like this, take Xactimate off the shelf, whatever, mark it up 30%, and then add 10 and 10 at the end. 10 and 10 on all your incurred costs, sub bids, and line items, and we can work it up for you. So DM me. I'll send you a link. We can work up that pricing for you and give you a schedule of fees that'll work for you.
Awesome. No, I definitely will. Once we get rolling here, hopefully within the next month or so, I will be reaching out.
Cool. Well, we're a little bit past our time, but thanks for being here, everyone. This is on the calendar now, and it's scheduled in my Zoom to happen every week. So what I'll do, Tim, is I will add you as co-host.
That's fine.
And then one of us.
When I can't do it, you can. And I got slammed. I know, Joe, you reached out to me last week, and I've been dealing with helping my aunt, and it's just been crazy. And I couldn't pull it off last week. I tried to get to the group last week, and I just couldn't do it. But so hopefully between Andy and I, one of us can hold down the fort each week.
We will figure it out. All right. Until next week, be good, fellas.
Thank you. I appreciate all the help.